we're all just walking each other home. Your whole life are your karma. We all have good and bad, but you have to tap into your good actively to put good out there. It's only hurt people who hurt people. Any innocent people dying is
Yeah.
bad. Oh, you look Pakistani, so you must be a terrorist. There are women who feel like wanting to hurt their babies.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Unlayering. Today, here we have Ritisha with us, who also goes by the common name of Balsamic Fine Gear. I'm sure she's touched our lives in different ways, whether it is for hacks for the face or hair, or just for her soulful messages. But apart from being a fashionista, let's unlayer what's behind that beautiful face. She is a wonderful mom of two and also is beautifully managing her work and personal life. Come, let's unravel her life. So, since you are a big influencer and who's impacted everyone's lives, seriously, in some way or the other, whether it is through your motivational quotes in the morning or through your easy DIY hacks for a better skin and hair, uh, you what inspired you to trod on this path and to actually start?
So, I mean, I started in 2013. Actually, that was not an inspiration. It was more like out of boredom. We were newly married. Karan used to travel a lot, and it was just him and I. Obviously, my in-laws live in London. My family's back in Bombay, so it was just me most of the time and my puppy, and we were like alone in this massive farmhouse. And coming from Bombay, I wasn't used to so much space and so much stuff to look after such a big space. So I was quite bored actually most of the time. And then a lot of my friends were like, "Okay, you dress really well, why don't you start documenting your looks and do something." Instagram was just kind of picking up then. So I thought, why not? And I had this house girl who used to take my pictures and I would upload them on Instagram, but I was very conscious of how people would react to it and how it would do. So I kind of was inspired by, I used to follow this girl on this page called Up Close and Stylish, and she used to post all her looks, but she would never show her face. So I was like, okay, let me go down that road. And I did. And obviously, initially, it was just friends who were my followers. Slowly, things started picking up, and I gained a little more confidence in myself in the page. And then I was on holiday in Mykonos, like this cut to like 3, 4 months later. And I got a call from the regional head of Jimmy Choo. And she was like, we've seen your page and we want you to host an event at Emporio at the store at Jimmy Choo, and call your friends and stuff, and we'll send you a bunch of shoes. Take a few pictures and outfits and the shoes and stuff and post them on your page. So that was really my big break.
Wow.
And to start off with a brand like globally
Yeah.
renowned shoe and bag brand was actually quite a big leap. And then from there, it just kind of took off. Then it became like all the luxury brands from there on. It was Dior. We did a lot of work with Gucci. I did the Cavalli and, most of the ground floor Emporio
Yeah.
stores.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So,
a big break.
yeah, it was a huge break. And I
Yeah.
think it was mainly because at that time, the market wasn't saturated. We were not so many of us. I think there were just a handful, like 3, 4 of us at the time. And because of that, I think in Delhi, there wasn't much of a presence in
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah.
bloggers slash social media influencers.
Yeah.
It was more popular in Bombay. And I think the main girls were from Bombay at the time. So, yeah,
But influencing wasn't really big at that time.
no,
I
not
think
at all.
people who would say that we are on Instagram, they were mocked by their families, right? Ki it's not a profession. Why are you wasting your
Absolutely.
time?
Absolutely.
So
Um, I don't think the term influencer also existed then.
yeah, yeah,
It was like blogger, even like
yeah.
content creator, digital creator. These
It
terms
wasn't
weren't,
there.
yeah, they were completely non existent. So, yes, it was definitely not looked down upon, or maybe to some extent, yeah, but more like it was not taken seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yes, to answer your question, yeah.
So, were you always this confident? Because when we see you on camera, you have no hang-ups, you're not shy, you're just out there, right? And that's what like give us an insight into your personality and how it's evolved over time.
Absolutely. So, I was a very, very shy child. almost a wallflower. In fact,
That's
my mom,
hard to guess.
yes, I know, my mom used to call me a wallflower. And, I used to like kind of refrain from being in the limelight. I didn't really like it. Even like in school and stuff, I never took part in, school plays and stuff. Even though at home in my comfort zone, I loved imitating my teachers, I loved acting. And I was like, the joker and the jester at home for my family. And my mom would keep being like, you're so good at this. You should take part in school plays, do a little more like debating, this and that. But I was very, very conscious and I kind of never wanted to, be in the forefront. So over time, I think my biggest, I would have to say, change in personality kind of happened when I chose accounts in eighth grade and I chose commerce, and my section kind of shifted. So I was taken out of that comfort zone again, with girls I had kind of grown up with in from like transition to eighth grade. And then the girls I made friends with eighth grade onwards were the ones who completely changed me. They were very confident, they were funny, they brought out that side to me, which I never knew could come out. I knew it existed, but I didn't know it could come out. And then I went to boarding school in England for 2 years. So that again was like a major transformation in my personality. You're alone, you have to make friends on your own, you're not sheltered. And there were only maybe 4 or 5 Indians in the whole school. My brother and I being two of the five. And so, yes, it was good for my personality development, my confidence.
Yeah.
You learn so much, you're exposed to so much. And then cut to university where I went in Los Angeles. I was at USC, University of Southern California. And once again, there it's like a completely different ball
Different
game
world,
from
yeah.
school, whether it was boarding school or high school in India, because again, you're just a fish out of water. There's so many students. Again, you have to figure out life for yourself. No hand holding, no spoon feeding. But yeah, I would definitely say all these things made me the confident person I am today. I studied media, communication, and broadcast journalism. So we did have a lot of lectures that were and classes or mini lectures that were, because of its broadcast journalism, you have to speak in front of a
Yeah,
camera.
yeah. There's
So we
no way
did
out.
have, yeah. So we did have courses for that. So once again, that definitely helped. But then I think in terms of Instagram, it comes with practice. It's not that you just go out there and you get it.
Yeah.
Took a lot of time for me to even do like reels where I'm talking and stuff. But yeah, I think just gaining confidence in yourself first and being happy and like I guess self love is such a big concept.
I think there's more self love that is being talked about as of now, but
Yeah,
I don't know how many people truly practice it. It's more for the camera, like wherever you go, there are these positive quotes. There's everything about relationships, self love, relationship with oneself. But
absolutely.
how does one really practice it and where does it all stem from? Because these concepts are good, but
Of
it's hard to
course.
implement.
So I don't think one practices self love actively. It's the little things you do on a daily basis, whether it's taking time out for me time, being comfortable in your own skin. Even if it's something like a facial that makes you feel good, I would say that to some degree self love. If going to, I'm just talking about very superficial things for now. A manicure, pedicure, a lot of girls, they say, oh, go get your hair done, do your nails, and you'll come out feeling good. That is a form of self love for sure. But I think more about learning to be comfortable in your skin, accepting who you are as you are. Of course, there's always room for improvement. No one is born perfect, none of us. And I think just conquering the fact that your thoughts are what make you, not other people's thoughts, is something, if you keep telling yourself, or even in little things, then that's where self love kind of comes in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's actively being like, okay, today I'm going to love myself. I
It's
think
only
it's,
Valentine's
yeah.
Day.
I think it's more about just being like, look, I am who I am, and I'm okay with it. My family loves me for me, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah. And for the industry that you belong to, right, there are lovers and haters.
Of course.
And you really have to be mentally strong to be up there in front of the camera, looking at trolls.
Of
seeing
course.
positive comments, negative comments. How do you keep yourself centered? And how do you keep yourself going no matter what other people say?
Okay. So I would say I'm a little bit lucky in this sense. I've not had too many haters or trollers. Um, I think more because I'm just who I am on my page. I don't try and pretend. There's no fake accents. There are no put on like looks. I think the main aspect of my trollers rather, would be anytime I post anything about religion or politics, which I've decided and realized I have to stay away from. These are just two topics that are just an absolute no go. Even if the other day, for instance, I just posted about Rafa, and I got a lot of, that was the first time I experienced so much hate on the page in terms of DMs. And even though you realize you're not really posting in favor for either side, for me, it was just like any innocent people dying is
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
Regardless of your religion, you're first a human being.
true.
So, yeah, those are topics I definitely don't want to ever touch upon again.
But what were the worst
I
messages
think they
that
were
you
just like,
got?
oh, you're a terrorist if you're only supporting Rafa. So you are also a terrorist. Oh, you look Pakistani, so you must be a terrorist. There are people who are just bored in life, I think. And I think it's very easy to sit behind a screen, whether it's a computer screen or phone screen, and write negative stuff about people. But it also makes me think and realize that it's just, I say this a lot to like my kids, I say it a lot to Karan, um, and I say it a lot to my family. It's only hurt people who hurt people. Today I'm happy, you're happy. I don't think either you or me would be sitting, and even if we both follow a lot of, I'm sure, influencers, models,
Yeah,
actresses, actors, artists. We don't sit there and think, oh, today we're going to write a negative comment, even if we may not have liked some content they've
yeah,
put out there.
yeah.
I highly doubt you, Apeksha, or me, or for that matter, anyone I know
I don't
would
think
sit and
so.
take
No.
so much time out to write something negative.
There's no time.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have that time, great, put it to good use instead of mocking and trolling people online. But yeah, of course, there were times initially, very initially, when if I did get that odd hate message where it would affect me. But over time, I've just realized that it's just not about me, it's a reflection of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's so many people who, I mean, I'm a tiny speck in this universe. The people are bigger than us. Let's just take Bollywood actresses, for example. They get hate on a daily basis. Even we, I mean, I'm guilty of this. We sit there, we discuss their
Yeah.
lives, we talk about the affairs their husbands may be having. We have no proof,
Proof,
but
yeah.
we do it. And there are people who comment on their posts, but if it doesn't affect them and they are so much bigger,
Sure.
so why am I getting affected?
Yeah.
You know?
That's such a good mindset to have because haters will be haters,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And you
That's
just don't want to indulge them. You don't want to get down. I mean, I'm very into like energies. And I believe everything is an energy exchange.
yeah,
Even if you're just sitting on Instagram and scrolling mindlessly, you're not actually mindlessly scrolling. You are absorbing the energy anyone
energy. Yeah.
puts out there. And I don't want to give time and energy to those comments, because why do I want to take in that negativity? It's
Makes
fine.
sense.
If I'm really bothered by it, I block them,
Yeah.
or I delete the comment.
I think
That's
that's
it.
the best way to
Yeah, I
go
mean, you can't do
forward.
that in real life,
Yeah.
unfortunately, where I can block people or delete them. But
But I think you can just decide whom to interact more
oh,
with and who to like
absolutely.
have just that social obligation with.
And even like energy boundaries,
Yeah.
you can be nice to everyone and be friends with everyone, but even you should know where to put that line
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. That's very hard to identify because when you are out there,
Yeah,
it's very hard to mark your boundaries. Like you just have to be yourself. And when you are yourself, there's no good or bad. There's just people.
absolutely.
So how do you create those boundaries?
I think it's your body language
Yeah.
to begin with.
Yeah.
People do know that while I'm a very forthcoming, warm, I mean, I'd like to think, uh,
Absolutely, you are.
loving person, I do respect my privacy and my me time.
Yeah.
And I think it's not that I overtly put it out there, but it is in your body language.
Hmm.
And then I think just putting up posts about these things every now and then drops hints to people. But yeah, I would definitely say it's through your body language.
Yeah.
That's what I keep telling my kids too. They're at a very impressionable, vulnerable age where I'm talking to them a lot about good touch, bad touch. And it doesn't just extend to like, okay, today someone may manhandle you
Yeah.
or fondle or mistreat you. It's more also just about you may not be okay with your friend taking something of yours. If you don't want to share your snack box,
Yeah.
not every day. Of course, I'm not encouraging not sharing, but it's okay to say no. If that's something you want to do, that's fine. And no one should make you feel bad about it.
True.
If you don't feel like playing with someone today, that's fine. They should not feel bad, but be polite about it.
Hmm.
So I think what we teach our kids is also something you can teach adults today. But yeah, saying no. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of these motivational quotes and stuff I put up, a lot of it has to be like, it's okay to say no.
No. You became an influencer at the time when influencing wasn't really a thing,
Right.
and you made it big for yourself, right? Uh, that time the market wasn't saturated. Today, it's probably harder to become an influencer and for the old influencers to be relatable.
Right.
And even the new influencers, right?
Of
You have to
course.
keep planning the content, you have to keep strategizing, keep working. So, how do you, firstly, how do you enter this space if you're a new person?
Um, I think luckily we're a population of over 1 billion today.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something for everyone. It's not that all 1 billion people have the same tastes and the same likes or dislikes. So, as in someone who's trying to enter the market, you have so much scope. You can create content about anything today.
Yeah.
Anything, and that's the beauty of Instagram. Believe it or not, there are some girls I had hired as nannies for my kids whose side hustle was being an influencer in like Nepal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like
TikTok is a big thing
yes, it's
there.
a big
Yeah.
thing there.
Yeah.
So that's my point. There's something for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's not really difficult, but yeah, if you want to set yourself apart from the crowd and the rest of like, since let's be honest today, Apeksha, every other girl is an influencer. It's again, I don't know how you measure the success of an influencer, unfortunately, because you can buy followers now, you can buy likes now, you can boost your content. Everything has become very monetized on Instagram because it's become a business. But if you found your niche and you know it's appealing to a certain sect and you stick to your guns and are different from the crowd, then you're definitely up for success. If you're going to just try and do the same stuff that every other girl does or guy or whatever, um, you're not going to succeed because there's dime a dozen. And that's why for me, I always stuck to my guns. There would be days when I definitely question, be like, should I be doing more editorial content? Should my content look more glossy, like, X, Y, or Z out there? But then I realized, but that's not me. And why do I want to be one of the 100 or one of the even 20 for that matter? My content is standing out because of a certain reason and it's appealing to a certain sect of people and certain section of society, which is fine. I don't have to appeal to all 1 billion, and that's
Yeah.
okay. It's fine.
Yeah, it's very hard to set yourself apart
Yeah.
in today's time. And even with the kind of content that you develop, like you do a lot of DIYs,
Yeah,
right? How much research actually goes behind it because there's only so much that you can do.
absolutely.
So, like, how do you divide your time between home and research and then content creation?
So, in terms of the DIYs, for example, COVID and lockdown were the time when I came up with it
Yeah.
because I think all of us were sitting at home, we were bored, and we didn't have access to like parlors and facials, obviously, for a very long time. Luckily, my mom is like this bhandar of uh, beauty tips and tricks.
Oh,
I know she was one who's always told us, okay, like if we would go on holiday and come back tan, she'd be like, "वो बेसन से नहाना, उसमें ये डालो, वो डालो," like that, and stuff like that. So that kind of has been ingrained in me since I was a kid. So then from there, you kind of start researching,
mhm.
you go online. I went a lot online and I found out like recipes for tanning, detanning, or hair growth recipes. And I would say, in terms of that, I would have to thank my nani because she's obviously, my mom is one of five sisters.
That's crazy. You mention a lot about your kids. I think you had kids at an early age, and you were kind of struggling with postpartum depression because you
Yes.
were all by yourself.
Yeah.
So, how did you deal with that? Because that is something that not everyone really talks about, but somewhere almost every woman is going through it in some way or
Definitely.
the other.
Definitely. So I think postpartum depression is obviously very common. I think it must happen to at least 8 to 9 out of women out of 10. Uh, it's a hormonal change your body goes through. Being pregnant and giving birth is a massive hormonal change for any woman. You're growing an entire human being in your body. Your hormones go through major ups and downs. So for them, your body to readjust is just as tricky as giving birth. So it is a very common factor, but because I think in India there hasn't been much literature or just really open discussion about it, women don't know what they're going through. Once I realized that maybe I'm going through, you kind of read here and there about what it is. And then when I put two and two together, I was like, okay, this is definitely postpartum depression. It's not just me being whacked.
Yeah.
I I was lucky enough to have a mild form of it where I could kind of self correct. But of course, I know a lot of women who've gone through worse where self correction and even just recognizing the problem isn't enough. You have to seek medical help, you have to get on medication. It's not just as simple as what I kind of was like take a hold of yourself, get a grip, and unfortunately for me, but unfortunately for a lot of women, it's not that easy. And I really wish more women spoke about it and looked out for help and kind of, helped each other out because it's a big thing. There are women who get suicidal. There are women who feel like wanting to hurt their babies. It's what I'm saying. There's
That's
such,
scary.
yeah, it's crazy
Yeah.
and it's common. Again, no one really talks about it.
Yeah,
So,
that's hard. And then how
yeah.
did you bounce back from your pregnancy, postpartum to your work? Because I'm sure there would have been a transitional phase wherein you would
Of
have.
course. So I could not take, I know I speak so much about self love and self acceptance, and that was also much later. I'll come to that later. But initially, like, I could not see the way my body had become. I could not take the weight gain. I gained with my first pregnancy with Ayansh, I was on bed rest for a good 7 to 8 months. I had a little bit of a difficult pregnancy medically. I gained 22 to 23 kilos. And for me, that was just like, wow, I cannot look at myself. I don't want to post content. I don't want to take pictures. So I kind of didn't want to do anything. Also on bed rest, you can't do much anyway. And then before I knew it, I was pregnant with Arhan, my second one. And luckily, both times after the stitches healed, because they were both C sections, I got back to my workouts pretty quick. And I was lucky to have a very good trainer who made me lose within the first year, the first pregnancy, all my weight. I was back to my pre pregnancy weight. And with the second one, because I was a lot more mindful about how much I ate, how much movement I got, it was a very, relatively speaking, a lesser weight gain. And bouncing back to my original body and weight was much easier. So, in that sense, I was blessed. But yeah, my work did take a back seat because also I did want to be more aware and around and alert for my kids. I did want to enjoy that phase and be there wholly for it. You can't, I'm sure a lot of women can. So I don't want to say you can't in terms of general, and I don't want to generalize, but I couldn't give my 100% to both. And I am a perfectionist by nature, so much so that it drives everyone around me crazy. But I knew I wanted to be there wholly and give my 100% to motherhood.
Yeah.
So once they started school a little more full time, whether it was nursery or play school or big school, is when I got back to work slowly. And it was more about just picking up with old clients that kind of gave me a break, which is why I'm grateful for them forever. But yeah,
But you were okay with asking for work because even that is something where ego comes in, right? That, oh,
absolutely.
okay, like how will I restart? What if I go to this person and there's a fear of rejection or not
Yeah,
being as relatable because there are more people in the industry by then.
of course. Oh, yeah. By the time I came back, the whole scenario had changed.
Yeah.
Um, Everyone was an influencer. The term influencer came about then. I was a bit shocked. I was also a bit apprehensive and scared because I was like, now how am I going to do this? There's
Yeah.
so much more competition. But luckily, it was kind of timed during lockdown and COVID, which is when the DIY hacks started doing really well. So the page growth was like compounded. There's a compound effect where it's exponential, right? The more likes
Yeah.
you get, the more followers.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so because I think people saw that the page was doing well anyway, even after a break and a hiatus and coming back, there was a confidence in my clients for them to reach out to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then a lot of so many homegrown brands came up during COVID.
COVID. Yeah.
And they probably didn't want to pay at that time girls who were demanding those types of fees
Yeah.
for promotions and collaborations. And I kind of took advantage of that and was like, okay, I'll tie up with homegrown brands because I cannot afford to throw my weight around now. So it was like mutually beneficial,
Yeah.
I think.
That makes sense. I think you have to time everything in
Yeah, I
life,
think it's
right?
just a case of right place, right
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of hard work, of course. But
For sure. But through this, like, how do you think that you've grown over a period of 10 years? It's been a decade since you've been doing
yeah,
this,
yeah, oh
right?
my God, yeah. Definitely a massive growth, massive. A lot more introspection. I'm more comfortable with who I am now. Um, I have realized that over time I became a lot more spiritual and more attuned to the life of Instagram and of my phone. That's because once again I think there were obviously benefits and disadvantages of lockdown. You got to spend so much more time with your families, people who really mattered to you. And after lockdown, also, you realized, at least I did, I didn't want to socialize with thousands of people. Just those people who mattered are what really matter in life. You know, if you can do 2 years without seeing a single soul or just a few people, then that's really just life, right? And I think a lot of people were happy in lockdown. You know, you worked on yourself, you worked on your baking skills, like I'm sure you did. Um, just stuff you start learning about yourself. And I think that's where personal growth comes in. More you learn about yourself, the more you grow. Um, right after lockdown, actually, my dad unfortunately caught COVID and passed away. So for me, that was a big shock for all of us. It just happened out of the blue and we did not expect it, obviously. And because I was so shocked by it, I turned to spirituality. And I wouldn't say it was like an active, like, oh, I have to become spiritual now, but I wanted to connect with him, whether it was his soul, whether it was the energy or whatever. So I started reading a lot more about life after death and what actually death means. And very deep inside me, I kept feeling like he's still around. You know, maybe his body is not around, but I can feel his presence. I think that for me and maybe my family also per se was a big turning point. And it made me really realize what is really important in life and what isn't. You know, I didn't want to, I cut off from a lot of people actively who I was like, they're really not benefiting my life in any way. And I don't mean financially or socially or anything. It's like they're just not part of my journey. And, you know, there's a very famous Ramdas quote. You're very spiritual. I don't know if you know it, but we're all just walking each other home. And I realized I only want to walk with those people who are taking me on serving a greater
Some
purpose in my
purpose.
life
Yeah.
and my life's journey. So, for me, that was a major growth and turning point,
Yeah.
you know? And yeah,
So you read a lot of books on death and spirituality.
yes.
Which were the books that actually
So,
impacted you, and what was your key takeaway from those?
so there's one by Shamak Davar, which is about the Bhavnagari brothers, these two Parsi brothers in Bombay who also just died very unexpectedly. They were very young, and their parents were devastated, and they somehow connected with their sons' souls. And now it's called automatic writing. I don't know if you've heard about it, but they connect with the spirits from the other side, and it's called automatic writing. You have to read up a little more about it. But that book had a profound, very profound impact. Actually, my friend who is Shamak's niece gifted it to me, and I read it. And for me, the key takeaway was the fact that you don't you don't move on. Like they're not gone forever. They're there and you just have to find it within you and ways to connect, you know. Um and another key takeaway was that your whole life are your karmas. Just be a good person and good will come back to you. Because where you go after this, of course, look, this is a very controversial topic. A lot of people may not believe in life after
Yeah.
that and reincarnation or even karma and dharma and all of that. But if you do believe in it, for me, I know my dad was like an amazing human being, and I know he's somewhere where I want to be. And for me to reconnect with him, I have to be good in this life. So that's all. I really think just being a good person is so important and so underrated. It's so easy to get swept up in like jealousy and competitiveness and comparison because of the social media age we live in. But if you peel off all the layers,
Yeah.
like is so
That's what we are
apt,
doing here.
yes, for your podcast.
Yeah.
Um, at the core of it, we all have good and bad, but you have to tap into your good actively to put good out there. So yeah,
True. I think you attract what you actually radiate,
absolutely.
right? It's
Absolutely.
just that.
Absolutely.
Through your father's death, I think you had a switch in your mindset, right? You developed some weird kind of strength,
Completely.
and that is just so important to navigate through life. H- How can a person build that strength, or how can a person find that strength? Because it's hard. It's very
Yeah.
hard to move on.
Oh, of course. I think it came over time. Firstly, though, we had to deal with it. You have to deal with death, and it's a part of life. I think, unfortunately, in India, Indian families, it's so common for a parent to tell a child, I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry, I'm never going to die. And I think that's something that we are not used to as a society. We don't really talk about death as well as often. And because of, we are a very tight knit, close family, that's something that kind of shook us to the core. Um, we had to find strength for each other. So I think for us, that is where the strength came from, knowing that we have each other, knowing that we can get through anything. Of course, emotionally, I don't think you ever move on
Yeah.
from the death of a parent, and grief is kind of tricky. It comes and goes in waves. And
Yeah.
little things will remind you of your of the person, whether it's a song, it's a smell, the little triggers. But you have to, over time, you learn to deal with it.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I don't know if you remember. Did you ever watch Lion King as a kid?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember when I used to watch it, even then, I was so young, that scene where Simba loses his dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even as kids, I remember we all watched it in the theater, like my whole class and my friends. Every single one of us was crying. So it's not like we don't know the concept. Even if we were as young as 8 or 9
Yeah.
when it came out, you're so young, and the thought of losing a loved one, or that character losing his loved one,
Yeah.
shakes you so much. It's because it is a part of life, and we all know it's going to happen
Happen.
one day.
But I think we live with this idea ki fine, it
Immortality.
will happen, but it won't happen to us.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. That ठीक है, we see it around us, but it won't touch
Yeah,
us.
yeah. And I think something like COVID really brought these things to the forefront.
Yeah.
So many people lost their loved ones. So many of my friends lost their parents, grandparents. So it was like while, like I said earlier, COVID had its lockdown, rather, I won't say COVID. Lockdown
Yeah.
had its
Yeah.
positives, but then COVID also had so many negatives,
Yeah.
obviously. Um,
Like the
yeah.
first, it was weird. I think it just made us all very selfish in some ways.
But I think that was the aim also to some extent. Like, don't see people, don't interact with people.
Yeah.
Like you said, it made you
Yeah.
selfish. Like, it made us very stoic in that emotionless almost,
True.
you know? And what's okay, as long as my unit is safe and we're fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't sit next to that one. People would come home, you'd be skeptical. Someone would cough, you'd look at them badly.
Hmm.
It just kind of built a lot of negativity
Yeah.
also at that time.
We all are running. We all are chasing things just for happiness, but we are unable to figure out what actually makes us happy.
Absolutely.
It's scary.
Though I think for me, I've figured it out. I've realized for me, time with my family, whether it's like Kara and me and the kids, or my siblings and my mom, and obviously dad when he was around. For me, that's what makes me happiest. And I'm not ashamed of it. Like, there were times that whenever I go back to Bombay, my mom will be like, go out, meet your friends. And my friends there will be like, you never meet us. And my friends here will be like, oh, when you go back, you just talk to your mom. But I was like, but that's what makes me happy. Why do I have to be embarrassed about it? Like, I want to go home and vegetate. I want to go home and just sit with my mom for like hours on end and not care about, anything and be conscious of it. But
I, this is a great value to have,
yeah,
because in today's time, I feel that kids and parents are just drifting apart. Even a family of four is unable to sustain that bond because I don't know, it's all because of the phones.
phone for sure. And I think one thing like my parents always were very, very conscious about was having one meal at least together on the dining table. That was like a standard rule. Breakfast, it was always breakfast because my dad used to work very late hours. So we would never do dinner together. But if all of us were at home at the same time, then it would also be dinner. But breakfast every morning for sure, because there is no other place in a house that brings everyone together, undivided attention, like a dining room or a dining table.
Very true.
And bonding over meals, like you would know, is the best.
But since you're such a hands on mom, you've let go of a lot of opportunities that came your way,
Yeah.
right? Do you ever regret saying no to certain opportunities, or on your bad days, or on the days when you are frustrated? Do you ever blame your family for taking that away from you?
Absolutely not.
Do you want to talk about this opportunity?
So yeah, I mean, having said that, I'll come to that. But I think I knew, like I said even earlier, when I delivered both the boys, I knew I wanted to be there for them 100%. I think it's also because of the fact that we don't have family locally. I didn't have an option as well. I'm not going to leave my kid just to nannies or to house staff. So I guess because of the circumstances, it was very circumstantial decision. But okay, in terms of Cannes, I got an opportunity to go there this year. Of course, like everyone knows, influencers also have to pay to go there. It's not like you're invited so like willy nilly and Yes, imagine. So it's not really all this hunky dory and like glam stuff that they show you. You have to pay an arm and a leg through your own pocket. But more before that, and aside from that aspect, um, I cannot leave my kids for 8 days on at a stretch. Just the very young, the very impressionable. They're also boys who I feel with every generation things get harder. They're very much and a lot more aware than let's say my brother was at that age back in the day. These are a little bit more tricky times for us as parents to navigate with access to TV, cartoons, a lot of stuff that is now very open on shows like, let's say, Peppa Pig, for example. They're actively talking about one of the characters on a cartoon that is meant for 2 to 3-year-old kids about a lesbian couple being a parent for a rabbit or something like that, and gay families, and which is all well and good. But I don't want my kid to pick that up through a cartoon. I want to be the one to have to speak to my child about it. Similarly, I don't want to have the Didi explain to him what that means with her limited knowledge or even her complete knowledge of it. Once again, it should be the parent who's having that conversation. I can't expect Karan to give up 8 days of his life to sit at home with the kids if I'm at Cannes just doing photo shoots. I'm not dissing anyone, and I don't mean just photo shoots, but for me, it is just a photo shoot. For me, quality time with my kid is a lot more important than doing a massive shoot, and I'm totally okay with where I am in my career or my career trajectory, the way it's headed. Um, so yeah, it's a very conscious decision. I do not regret anything. I actively make my choices, Apeksha. I am very aware, even if I want to do 20 collaborations in a month, there is the opportunity to do it. But I know I can't take that on and devote that kind of time to it and put out crap content, be compromised on time with my family.
Yeah.
So everything I do is very actively decided. And I'm okay with that.
So you have this calm about yourself, right? You have a lot of clarity and you are very content in yourself. Like, what did it take for you to reach this state?
I think uh, from the contentment point of view, it's just who I always was as a person. I love my own company. I love my me time.
It's hard to find such people.
Yeah, I know, I know. I loved lockdown for that reason. I loved the fact that there was no social pressure. I didn't have to go out and make excuses for not wanting to be out. So for me, that was like ideal. It was a joke at home that, oh, for my pet name is Chicky. So they'll be like, oh, for Chicky, this is perfect. Like she never has to meet people or is up or lie. So yeah, I think contentment also comes, like I said, from the confidence knowing that your family is there for you no matter what. It all just stems from how you're loved and treated as a child. And I think we were very blessed to have very loving parents who instilled so much confidence in us that I hope to be that child parent to my kids too.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you are. You really are. So you said that you were making excuses to not be there at social events or to fulfill those social obligations. There's a common myth, right? That influencers want to be everywhere, they want to socialize a lot. And the more you socialize, the more you network, the more work you get at the end of the day. And somehow it becomes a part of your lifestyle and of your being, and you start enjoying it, perhaps. So, this is quite contrary to
Oh,
your
yeah. I'm known in
personality.
the industry as the girl who won't show up to any event. Invites come, I don't go. And they'll also write in the in the WhatsApp, like we know you don't attend events, but dot 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 dot. Um, and every time, like if some like a worthy event worthy of attendance crops up, like a Cartier event or a Bulgari event or something that I feel is worth my time, I make a mental note of being like, okay, I am going to attend this. Still, I never show up. I never show up. I say yes to everything. I don't know what happens to me at the end. A massive part of it is laziness. Having to get ready, sit in the car, distance, traffic, Gurgaon to central Delhi. No events happen in Gurgaon. When I think about it, I said, okay, I'm very happy with where my page is at today. Of course, it has scope to go to another level, but can I give that much time to the next level? I mean, it's a constant dialogue within me. And I'm like, but I don't want to. I don't want to. I know I'm doing as much as I can handle and as much as I want to. So why? And which is fine. Luckily, I've never been jealous of another influencer. I've never compared my page to another girl's. I've never thought that I also have to be at X event and Y event and Z event.
You have I don't know, like there's so much of contentment. Again, I'm coming back to it because it's so important and it's hard to find in today's time. Um, have you ever faced or have you ever suffered from FOMO?
There was a time when I did, I won't lie.
Yeah.
Much before I moved to Gurgaon and much before I had kids, these things would really bother me, like, not being invited somewhere, a social thing or whatever. And it was a lot to do with Delhi when we moved to Delhi post marriage. There would be a lot of it, primarily because I think we met the wrong kind of people who thrived on making other people feel bad. And very early on, Karan and I realized that these are not the people for us. We were very grateful and very lucky to then meet a whole other bunch of people who made us just as welcome as another group of people made us feel unwelcome.
And how did they do
I
that? I
think just
mean,
like
I
things
just
like
want to
not
get
inviting
into.
you to certain things on purpose, mainly that would just be that really. Um, and then I was very lucky to meet a bunch of girls who are from Bombay who are married to Delhi boys. So you kind of get along as well because you have a Bombay connect. And I know it's a stereotype and I know people keep saying this, but it's very true. Bombay people and Delhi people are poles apart.
Yeah.
Bombay people are beyond welcoming and
Yeah.
they're very warm.
And they
They
don't
don't
care.
care who you are, who you are
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very big shock for me moving to Delhi was Everyone here thinks they're someone. Here, I mean in Delhi, not Gurgaon. Everyone is someone. Or मैं ये हूँ, मैं वो हूँ, I drive that car and I drive that car. And I grew up in Bombay and I went to a very prestigious school where we had the richest of richest kids in our school, in my class, who you wouldn't even know. They would come in normal cars, wear normal clothes. They probably had one Maharashtrian bai as their nanny, like the rest of us did. Their parents were absolutely down to earth and normal. And till date, those people are the same. Whereas here, I realize there are people who have nothing to show wealth wise, but will show that much more. So yeah, that was kind of a trigger for the FOMO initially. But having kids changed that because you can't go out as much. So you kind of become okay with not being invited to certain things. I think it's just about meeting the right people where FOMO just doesn't become a factor in your life anymore.
That's so true. Like people really do have an impact on the kind of life that you're
Oh,
living, on the
absolutely.
way you are thinking, and on every aspect of your life. And before you know it, you start functioning like them in certain
Oh,
ways.
yeah, of course.
Like their thinking rubs off on you.
Absolutely.
And it takes a lot of effort for you to steer away from the group that you thought was your core group until you realize that no, this has a
Yeah.
negative impact
And I
on
think
me.
also accepting that is a big step.
Yeah,
And once you've reached that acceptance and realization, and then to decide you want to do something about it is the next step.
yeah.
But yeah,
But being conscious at all the times is some self work,
oh, of course.
right? You
But
have to keep
everything
your
is no
mind.
picture.
Yeah,
Everything takes
yeah,
self work.
yeah.
Everything. There's nothing in life that comes easy, unfortunately.
True,
And I think the biggest work anyone will have to do in life is working on oneself.
true. It's
It's
the
the
hardest.
hardest, but once you, I'm not saying I've mastered it, but I think I've somewhere learned the ways around it, which has really made me, like you keep saying, content.
Content, yeah.
You know, you realize that there's so much more to life than just parties and social events and wanting to be seen and clicked at the right places at the right time.
It's also about the maturity, right? Because at a certain age, you want to be there, you
Yeah,
want to
of
be everywhere.
course.
And then gradually, when you read, when you learn more about life, you realize that that's not the true essence of life. There's more to
Absolutely. And I
life.
think that's, if you're a superficial person,
Yeah,
you'll never reach that realization. If
yeah,
you're someone who has depth and who's been there, done that, you've partied, you all, but you also know there's more to life than just parties. And if you are a deep person, then these things will come very naturally to you.
yeah.
I'm calmer as a person. I used to be very volatile. I used to be very reactive. I used to get very bothered by a lot of these superficial things, which over time have, I don't know how, maybe it was just a switch, just was like, that's it, it's done. You know, now nothing phases me, literally nothing. Of course, there are people who get under my skin, but that's
Yeah.
normal and I am human being. But
Yeah, but you have that on and off
of course,
button
you
now,
have to, everyone
right?
has to.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
everyone comes with good and bad, right? You can't just pick and focus on the negatives in everyone. And I truly depend on my gut feeling and intuition. I think I'm very intuitive. My intuitions have been right 100 out of 100 times.
wow.
I,
Is any example?
oh, so many, just about feelings, about people.
Yeah,
Even during dad's time, certain family members of his who were just trying to push my mum around for certain things. I was very intuitive about what they would come and say. And I would tell my mom, I'd be like, okay, she's going to come today and she's going to say this. Don't react like that. And then it would happen exactly like that.
that's
Yeah. And
crazy.
she would be like, oh my God, how did you know? And I was just like, I've had that kind of thing in myself. Certain things I would tell Karan about certain business people or people. That's always come true. Of course, we'll have many arguments about it before we
Yeah,
reach
yeah.
the revelation. But yeah,
But you can enjoy the I told you so moment.
totally. Well, I mean, I don't know. After all the tears, I'm not sure. Yeah, but
Yeah. Lastly, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
My legacy. I keep talking about my dad, but I think this is where the term legacy actually meant something to me. Um, when he went, we got this crazy amount of messages from people. Obviously, he was a very famous, popular social person, like, but random people from random parts of the country and the world obviously sent condolence messages. But Apeksha, I kid you not, every single message spoke about how he had helped them at some point in their lives, be it financially, be it emotionally, be it like, helping their some relative out with something, maybe not even them directly. And I mean, from like his office peon to like a really wealthy friend. He had touched someone's life in some way that meant so much to them. And that's when I told my mom, and all of us realized that once you go, no one will really talk about how beautiful you are or how wealthy you were or what you achieved work wise. Of course, yeah, those are part of eulogy sayings and stuff, but how you touch someone's life and how kind you are and how helpful is what people will remember always. And I tell my kids that also. I like, Nanu is remembered because of how nice he was. And we should
Yeah.
all aim to be that. And I think that's what I want. I just want people to be like, she was such a positive person who helped us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we definitely feel it. Like we still feel it.
Yeah,
It's just your energy.
absolutely. I hope so.
It's true. It's
So,
very
yeah, I would
true.
say that that's what I want my legacy to be.
Yeah.